I believe that we were recording from the beginning, but I just recorded to the cloud. I was concerned because somebody asked me about that. So if it hasn't been recorded, I'm really upset about that, but so we'll continue.
It
Sorry.
was saying it was recording before.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah.
It says it now.
Okay, the next question is, what specific policies and procedures would you implement to increase the transparency of Skokie governance and its decisions? Let's go to Khem this time.
I'm sorry, do you mind repeating the question? I missed that.
Sure. What specific policies and procedures would you implement to increase the transparency of Skokie governance and its decisions?
Okay, so when we talk about transparency, it really depends on who is asking that question, right? And so when a lot of folks, when they think about how they're engaged in the village right now, they're getting information. When I started at the village, we didn't even have a social media page. That was kind of how behind they were, as far as I know that other municipalities had information, even one-way communication to let members, the community residents, know what was going on in the community. Morton Grove had it, Evanston had it, Lincolnwood had it, and then when I was trying to look up information about the village of Skokie, there wasn't one. There was one for the police department, there was one for the downtown Skokie area, but there wasn't even basic communication to let our members know what is happening and to be able to communicate information in real time. Having a newsletter, whether by email or by print mail, it's not fast enough to keep up with today's information. And so even the simple act of being able to have our information to the residents online was one step. The other thing was just finding ways to engage people in the communities. We had a communications person who came in and really focused on getting information out in a way that was more accessible to our residents through, again, social media and using videos and photos and images and being able to communicate and talk to residents and share those testimonials online as well. And then as far as any additional policies and procedures, I think that's something we can continue to evaluate in terms of how to improve communication, right? So that was one of the things I learned coming into the village board, was that the village is doing a lot of work, but they weren't doing a good job of communicating to the community what it was they were doing. And then I think that creates the perception of either we're not doing enough or we are not addressing or meeting their needs. And I think a big part of it is like we also need to be able to do a better job of communicating to residents what are the things that we're doing and why we're doing it.
Okay, thank you. Joe?
Thank you. Yeah, this is a similar problem that we have at D219. We're constantly getting told that, hey, we need to communicate better. And so what we have decided to do is go to where the people are. So it turns out that one of the best areas that we are able to communicate to our students is through platforms that they utilize. Instagram now has been a wonderful source for information from D219, Facebook for the older folks. We're actually sending direct emails for people who opt in to get email information. Our website has been revamped to make it more user-friendly. We put alerts now onto cell phones when important information is being disseminated at the board meeting. And even while doing all that, when we go back and survey people, they say, hey, you're not telling us what we need to know. It's a struggle, and I appreciate what Skokie's going through. I think that we have to constantly look at other opportunities and procedures to keep getting better and finding out what works. And for our senior population, you know, social media and electronics may not be the way to go, and that's where paper comes in, even in this day and age. So I don't want to take too much time, but I think we need to look at multiple ways to communicate what's going on and recognize that different people need to hear things differently.
Okay, Keith.
Yeah, and thank you for the question. I remember, we had this conversation at one of the earlier budget meetings that I was fortunate enough to attend, where we were literally looking at over 700 pages of the budget, and which is just a tremendous amount of things to kind of comb through. So, the reality is all this stuff is available and it's transparent because it's available. But I think the reality is it's difficult to take in, to read all this stuff. We need some bite-sized chunks. I think Joe and Khem have already talked about the social media impact and, looking at some of the successes at our own district. I've learned this, in my years as an administrator, you can never over communicate. You can never over communicate. So I think, just finding ways in different areas to do that. And don't forget having language accessibility for our rich diversities that's in the village. We kind of, I think a lot of, material just kind of default to maybe Spanish. But we really pushed the communications department to be more language accessible. And it's better, you can translate the pages on the website, but there's so much more we can do. I'm fortunate, again, to be in a high school district where I'm very close to communication and see the robust ways that young people and their parents access it. And, we're continuing to try to beef that up. So that's my take on it. But again, I think everybody's kind of hit the social media impact, but really looking for ways to provide accessibility to the residents.
Okay, thank you. And Gail.
Yes, thank you. I think that the real issue is not just, do we use social media enough? Do we have enough newsletters? It really has to do with, do we have transparent processes? Does everybody know what the rules of the road is? Because in my experience, and I suspect a lot of the people who are on this call, is that, for example, with a development, it'll go to the appearance commission first, or maybe it goes to the plan commission first. It goes to the plan commission. Almost everything that gets passed by the plan commission, well, almost everything gets passed by the plan commission, and then it gets rubber stamped by the village board. It really doesn't feel at all transparent. People do not understand what these commissions actually do and what the board's role is in reviewing what commissions recommend. So that's one thing. The other piece is that, yes, we need to go out into the community a lot more, not necessarily expect people to come to the village hall, but go out and speak to people where, I guess as Joe had put it, about where they're at. And then people really need to be invited to get involved much more in decision making. It's what I do as an executive director. I work with my board and my staff every time I work on budgets. I work with my board committees and with my staff directors to come up with goals. So we're not just looking at money, we're looking at what are the specific things we want to get done this year, and to what mission, and how does that serve? So again, I think that increasing transparency has to come with real clarity and fairness about the rules of the road in Skokie.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to the next question. What are your 3 top priorities as a trustee, and what initiatives would you take to pursue those priorities? And I believe that it's time for Keith to go first.
Work, to continue to work. I'm really interested in exploring a youth division to the village, really kind of deep diving into what that can look like. I also prioritize really being accessible. One of the fundamental things that I believe in my life's work is the power of relationships, and being really authentic in those opportunities to connect with people. So, I do this again by just being present, available, accessible to community members to really understand what's going on out there, what are the needs, and how I can support.
Awesome, thank you. Joe, your turn.
Thank you for the question. So my first priority will be focusing on local economic development. I really think it's imperative that we divest ourselves from having Old Orchard being the 800-pound gorilla in Skokie and look at possibilities of having a stronger economic base outside of that. Revitalizing downtown Skokie, filling the vacant storefronts is critical. And I think it's once you start, you create a creative mass that will grow. And I envision our downtown rivaling Park Ridge or some of the other very lively downtowns in our local area. The other area I want to look at is reviewing and cutting red tape. So let me give you an example. So when I put solar panels on my house, or when I put a new wooden fence on my house, the process of getting the permitting and the reviewing and everything was not very user-friendly. And I promise that if I'm a trustee, I will look at these processes. As an engineer, I've been trained to always have process improvement and continuous improvement. And I really believe that we could make our residents feel that our services are being done more efficiently and more quickly and more accurately if we really review those processes, review the fees associated with those processes, and make sure that we're really giving our community truly the benefits of having a good system in place when they want to make improvements to their house or make changes and so forth. And the third area that I really want to work for, we've touched on before, and that's communication. I think getting the packet of the board meeting a couple of days in advance is not enough. I think we need to have an earlier release of the critical issues that are going to be discussed at board meetings, so that the public has time to analyze those key issues, review those key issues, and come up with pertinent questions and commentary that we as a trustee need to hear before we make that decision. Somebody, I don't know who made the comments saying that the comments at the board are done at the end of the meeting, and that's true. At D219, we put at the beginning of the meeting, and you'd be surprised how some of the comments have a dramatic effect on the board members hearing them. They really give us a different perspective on some issues. And I think that's something that I would like to see happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Gail, your turn.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. I believe first and foremost that we deserve a vision for Skokie. And for me, that vision starts with engaging the people as my number one priority. And for too long, Skokie has been reactive, and the voices of Skokie residents like you and me have been ignored by the party in power. And so what we need to do is engage in systematic outreach to residents. I mean, I don't have to say to a lot of people, just name the word Carvana. we all know that this was an issue that really, for a lot of people, a lot of residents, crystallized what the disconnect was between what the people wanted, and in essence, what the birds wanted if they could vote, and what our village board was doing, not listening even to what experts were saying about this glass car tower in front of the path of migrating birds. So that to me just sort of crystallizes what we need to do to build trust. So I would do this, as I said, by opening up boards and commissions and having residents have a direct pipeline to the village board and to the village hall. The second thing is a new comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan is almost 25 years old. It cannot be patchworked every year with a new chapter this and a new that. We need to get our newly engaged citizenry here in Skokie, residents, businesses, and go out in the community and use the comprehensive plan process to build a consensus and a vision. And then finally is economic development, that we need to use our economic development tools to foster a sense of place in Skokie, to not focus on people who just swoop in on the Edens Expressway to go shopping and then leave. That's not an economic, that's not a recipe for either ethical economic development or even stable economic development, being totally dependent on the outside. We would do much better recycling our local dollars and enhancing the dollar that goes from our residents to our businesses to support people and then back again. So you can see I have other priorities that you can see on my website, gailforskokie.com, but those are my 3 top priorities.
Okay, thank you. We're going to switch direction a little bit now and go to what would you do to support preservation and creation of affordable housing? That's something that we've touched on a little bit as we've talked, and it's something that is definitely an issue in Skokie. Let's start with
Judy, I think
Khem.
after the last question, so I'll respond to that.
Oh, you didn't? I'm sorry.
Okay.
I am so sorry. I forgot to keep a tick mark here to do that. Go ahead, Khem. I was going to start with you, so answer that one and then go right into the next one.
I have overlaps, and we talk about that. I think for me, like there's going to be issues that are going to come about that we don't always have any impact or control over, right? But the key thing is that we're leading with our values. So you think about the things that we care about and what's important for us. And so I go back and I talk about the reason why I ran for office to begin with, which is to be able to create a safe and welcoming community for us. It's the reason why I wanted to make sure, my children had a place that they can go to and didn't have to worry about what was happening nationally, right? They needed to have role models within their own communities that they can look to and feel like they belong here, because at the end of the day, it's about belonging as well, right? And so I ran for the first time in 2017, and here we are right now in this new administration, same person, and we know that we're going to have to put up a fight. We have to find ways that we can work together as a community and to heal. I understand that it's been rough these last couple of years. It's okay to disagree. And I wish that we can have a safe space where we can have that dialogue and talk about different perspectives and why we believe what we believe in, but also have the grace to listen and hear the other person's perspective, and to at somewhere along the way is to be able to find that light where you can find that middle ground and try to work together, right? Because my way is not always going to be the right way, and neither is your way. And we have to find a way to heal, because our community has been torn apart for so long. As a nation, we've been torn apart for so long, and we got to figure out how we can work together again. I believe in sustainability. I put that into practice. I have, we compost, we have solar panels. We're doing everything we can and in practice in terms of practicing sustainability, but in terms of policies, we want to make sure that the village is doing its part as well and encouraging residents and our businesses to put into practices things that will promote sustainability in our community. Looking at increasing opportunities for mixed and affordable housing. That includes looking at different types of housing stock. Being able to improve current housing stock, but also making sure that for the new units, we do have that new development that is also set aside as affordable to our community, right? And it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to be a multifaceted approach. It's not just, we passed the inclusionary housing ordinance. We need to put forth the land trust. We need to figure out how to have better partnerships with private developers as well as community, and think about what is the vision that we want to create. I know that the board disapproved and it's reviewing the Main Street development, right? And that's been something that has been a partnership from local legislators as well as community members who have led that effort as well. We have to find ways to work together. It's not going to be something that's going to happen overnight. It's a 20-year plan. What can we put in place to make sure that we are bringing people into that vision so that we can actually implement that vision, right? And when we think about economic development, I agree with you, Gail. It's not just about Westfield. We want to support Westfield, but we also need to focus on our small businesses. I come from a family. I spent much of my childhood in a small business with my parents. And so I understand what it was like for them to struggle, working 7 days a week, not being able to get the support that they needed, and getting by. But it was what they had, and that was how they provided for the family and how they were able to raise us as well, because they couldn't go work at a regular 9-to-5 job as an immigrant. They didn't speak the language, but they knew it enough to be able to start a small business, and they did well for themselves for a while, and then was able to raise 3 children with that. So those are the values that I'm coming into the village board with, and at the same time just making sure that I'm coming in and being open-minded and listening to different perspectives. And I think I kind of answered the question a little bit about the affordable housing piece, but let me know if I missed that.
Well, the question is, are you comfortable that you answered that?
I think so. I mean, it's kind of all lined up together, so I'm good with that. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, Keith, affordable housing.
Yeah, thanks for the question. And I gotta apologize. I know that last answer that I had was very rushed because I thought I heard we were wrapping up at 8:45. So I was trying to get through it pretty quickly. But my thoughts on affordable housing, you have to have like inventory. And I think when we did when the village had the foresight to look at the development for downtown, that 800 North, my understanding is they didn't even really think that people wanted to build here. After that went up into success, it's clearly Skokie is a desirable place to live. But again, in affordable housing, I think you really have to look through the lens of dignity and inclusion. Everyone should have the right to live in every community. I think I mentioned early on that as a kid, I moved probably every 2 years throughout my childhood. And that's really relevant and personal to me because I literally remember being in the projects to moving to a basement, huge apartment complex, to moving to upstairs, to eventually a single family home, small, but it was through the process, and my mother working with the affordable housing advocates to make sure that we had access to, I think what every family wants is just a safe place for their students or their children to live. And also in thinking about affordable housing, to me, it's expanding, for our community members. Think about those who've been those elderly residents who've been in their homes for so many years and now unable to keep up with it. To have an option for affordable housing is just a godsend opportunity where hopefully there could be some transitions there, which now leaves a single family home for a younger family. I love the work that we've done in the last 4 years. I think we voted for more than 1,500 units, and we got the inclusionary housing finally on the books, although it's weak. And I'm okay with it being weak because I truly trust our are commissioned and the subcommittee to really provide the expertise they have to help us really design and reframe and set those expectations as recommendations to the board. So there's a lot of work. Again, this is deeply personal for me, but I want to be clear that it is for this community to have a different variation of housing opportunities in the village.
Okay, thank you very much. Gail.
Yes, thank you. This is actually my big issue, housing. And I would rephrase that. We're not just talking about affordable housing, but we are talking about housing in general in Skokie. What kind of Skokie do we want to be? Who do we want to be accommodating here? And it's not just also about new construction, but what can we be doing to help people remain where they currently live, if that's what they choose, to make it accessible. We also have an issue where over 8,000, a third of Skokie households, are paying more than they can afford for their rent or for their mortgage or taxes. That's a huge issue. That is an affordability issue. So what Skokie really needs to be doing is, first and foremost, so this is what we talked about with Skokie Neighbors for Housing Justice, which I helped to organize 2 years ago, is we called for the village to do a housing needs study. We don't have that. We don't know where the pocket of need is by population. We don't know, we don't have a clear picture of where the opportunities to develop from new are. So once we do that housing needs study, we can come up with a menu of policies. The inclusionary zoning or housing, it's not even in the zoning code, which I said that I've never seen basically a very performative ordinance that, that doesn't do anything, just basically says, well, let's do some affordable housing, but calls for hardly any, and units that actually will disappear in, I believe the ordinance is, I think it's 25 years. It's certainly not more than 40 years. So what use is that to create some housing that is just going to disappear? So Skokie needs to really think about not just like the population that needs housing at different income levels, but also the entire village. What can we do to stop siphoning off lower income residents that have to be moved, that move or are displaced? How about we have some kind of a affordability impact statement every time, just like we assess parking? What about some kind of study that says, if we're going to do this development, what will be the impact on surrounding neighbors? So these are just some ideas and thoughts on a housing policy for the village of Skokie. And I know we can do this. I can do it. I can get this done.
Okay, thank you. And Joe.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, Skokie should be a place where people of all ages and incomes can live. We need a mix of affordable housing options for young families, for working professionals, and as also seniors, because affordable housing doesn't mean just the price of the house. Affordable housing means the taxes don't drive our seniors out of our community, that the fees don't drive our seniors out of our community, that other expenses just keep growing to the point that it's advantageous to leave instead of staying. But I want to talk about a bigger picture. And to me, affordable housing is just a small fraction of what I'm calling affordable living in Skokie. And by that, let me just reference back when I was a child. I used to live in Humble Park. And within a short walking distance of my home, we had restaurants, we had a grocery store, we had a food, we had places to purchase food, we had a shoe store, we had a convenience store, all within a walking distance. This created a sense of community. This created a sense where people didn't have to get in a car and travel 15 miles to Old Orchard or whatever shopping mall they needed to go to. And that's an element that as we develop areas that really need to be reviewed, we should consider. Let's bring elements into Oakton Street and Main Street and Dempster and all the other avenues that currently have a lot of vacancies, and try to create that holistic vision where a person doesn't need to hop in a car to get their conveniences or their needs. They could just walk. And I think that would make for a much better, much sustainable Skokie. And that's the vision that I have long term as new opportunities arise to develop older properties. Or the other possibility is we have some industrial areas that in the future, maybe that industry will move out. So that will give Skokie the opportunity to reevaluate and make that a multi-purpose area where people can truly experience everything that they need, instead of just having a bedroom community where they have to travel to get their food or their other conveniences. So that's kind of my vision that I would like to push for Skokie in terms of affordable living, where affordable housing is a component of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
So we've gone over time. We've had 4 candidates now, and it's 9:05. So I'd like to ask the candidates to do their closing statements, not arguments, sorry, closing statements. And so we'll start with our newest comer, Khem.
Really quickly, I saw that Kim had a question in the comment that I just want to address real quick. I did correct myself earlier regarding the whether or not there was a approval for Main Street development. It was a review. The board reviewed the vision that was proposed by the staff, but the actual development that's going to come to fruition is going to take some time as we identify what those opportunities are, and then actually bring it before the full board. So I just want to correct myself and make sure that that is clear out there as well. In terms of closing statement, I understand that we are coming here and we have a lot more in common than we have differences. So if you start listening to what Gail and Joe and Keith and myself have to share, I think there's a lot that we have in common, but there are also differences as well, right? That differentiate us. At the end of the day, we're one community, and what I'm interested in is just trying to find ways that we can work together to be able to hear those differences. And so like I've always been engaged with the public, whether it's dealing with the public with my parents and their business, or in my work, I've had folks who had different political points of view, and but we were always able to have a conversation around values, right? I think that's what drives us is based on our values, and if that's something that we can agree on, there's hope, right? For us to come up with solutions that work together, and the solution that we come up with may not be what we thought was going to be going into it, right? But the key thing is being able to have an open mind and dialogue and have those conversations, because we are stronger together, and that's what I'm interested in terms of moving forward, is finding opportunities where we can close some of that division and find ways that we can work together.
Khem. Joe, closing statement. I'm sorry.
Sure,
Yeah,
thank you. First of all, I want to thank Indivisible for hosting this forum, and it's so refreshing to have all the candidates here and speaking their truths, and I really thank all of you for participating. I just want to say that Skokie is more than just a place that I've lived since 1986. It's a community built on diversity, hard work, and shared values that we touched on. For nearly 10 years, I've worked on improving our schools, promoting transparency, and ensuring responsible financial management at D219. Through my service on the D219 board and my work at local nonprofits, I've seen firsthand what strong leadership and community collaboration can achieve. I'm running for trustee because I believe Skokie deserves leadership that shows up, listens, and works for everyone. I want to bring my experience, my problem-solving mindset, and my deep commitment to this community to Village Hall. I would be honored to earn your support and your vote on April 1st. Together, we can make Skokie stronger, more transparent, and a place where every resident feels heard. You could reach me at my Facebook page, my Instagram page, Joe for Skokie. I'll answer any question I can. I really want to make sure that I listen because as a trustee, I don't know everything, but I promise to listen and learn as much as I can so that every decision is made with what I could honestly say is the best information that I had available at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And while you brought it up, if every candidate could put their information in the chat, so that the voters can know how to contact you and how to help you, that would be, helpful, please. And then, sorry to interrupt, who's next? Keith?
Sure, I'll go. Well, I just, want to talk about kind of what I've learned. I've learned that there's power of the people. I think when people in the community come together behind an issue, whether it's petitions, laws, elected officials must respond. I have had some personal growth through this experience. I've developed a greater humility and perseverance, and have endured some things that I didn't think I could. I also know that having your own agenda won't have longevity because it's not the agenda of the people. I've worked in so many different boards, from local foundations to currently a board member at my alma mater, university. There's been so many, and I've learned that through that governance over personal agenda. And finally, I want to finish when I started. I've worked across Skokie and look forward to continuing to serve the students, the adults, for years to come. I do believe in the power of one, that there's one community, albeit super diverse, that we must have the opportunity to come together and build connections and relationships, stop creating narratives of division, and really talk, just sit down and talk with one another. And I personally invite, anyone who's listening to continue the conversation. KhemandKeith.com. You can find our email, provide, some coffee dates. We can meet anywhere, anytime. I'd love to continue this conversation and also seek an understanding of what's important to you. And again, I hope to have your support on your vote on April 1st. And I too want to thank Indivisible for providing this opportunity to have this discussion.
Would like to go next?
I think that would be me.
Yes. Are
Yes,
you last,
thank you.
Gail? Are you last? Last but
I
not least.
believe so.
Okay,
Thank you, Alonka. Thank you, Indivisible.
yes.
Thank you to Joe and Keith and Khem. I think this has just been a great, I don't know about the rest of you, but I feel like this is one of the deepest, most interesting conversations we've had in the village of Skokie in recent years about the village. And I would love to see more of this. So in my closing statement, I just want to say that I have dedicated my entire career on empowerment, working with people of all backgrounds as an organizer. I help to put people together as in housing and in campaigns around the North Shore. I helped to save the Mallinckrodt campus in Wilmette, 17 acres, 450 trees, and a historic building that turned into essentially a dream project, because I worked with residents there to help come up with a vision for it. And I feel like I'm just the right person in this new regime of electoral reform to sit in that trustee seat. And so, what I would, close by saying is, in my current role at Housing Opportunities and Maintenance for the Elderly, we do direct service. We provide intergenerational affordable housing. And we have a vision and you might call it a credo of flowers before bread, which I feel is I've adopted it as my own, which is the idea that, yes, we need food, clothing, shelter, we need basic services, we need potholes filled, we need, police service, but we also need the flowers. And then, in other words, that's respect. That's being treated with dignity. And that's something that I have experience in doing and would bring to Skokie in the trustee role. And I look forward to working with whomever sits on that dais and the people as well into coming up with a much more vibrant and exciting village. And hope to earn your votes on April 1st. Thank you.
I think that's wrapping up what we have to do tonight. We have a couple comments from the admins on what's going on in the future. So Scott, take it away.
All right, Lanka, yeah, we have some announcements. Next week on 2/19, we have a area in District 4 candidates for trustees James Iverson and Eddie Olivieri. I might have mispronounced that. But because of the League of Women Voters will be having their forum the last week of this month. And because of the mayoral debate set for 2/24, which is canceled, we'll change our question and answer to that Monday, 2/24. Because we represent Skokie, Morton, Grove, and Lincolnwood, we are trying to get candidates from contested elections from all three suburbs. For that Monday, the 24th, we are working on a contested election in Morton Grove. Judy, do we have anyone in the workings for that?
I believe that we're working on getting the candidates for the library board for that Monday.
All right. So should not that be feasible, we hope to get candidates from School District 219 that day. We have not heard from the candidates from the trustees. Get that, pardon me here. Texts are coming in as I'm speaking. We have not heard from the candidates from the trustees for Area District 1. If you have friends with them, please reach out. If they are available that evening, you can reach out to any one of us on Indivisible Skokie. It will be helpful for our candidates who wish to debate to get together with their opposing candidates and coordinate a time, preferably on a Wednesday, if not a Sunday night, where they are all available and they could contact us for that. That's all from my end. Lanka, do you have anything?
I just want to thank all the candidates for participating. I'm so excited. It's just it's inspiring that they're public servants and we should know what they have to provide to us as candidates, and that they expose themselves tonight, making themselves vulnerable for questions and answers, and I appreciate that. So that being said, we are working towards preserving our democracy. That's what Indivisible does. Most of our work has been done by engaging people who appreciate democracy, and that means anyone who is. We don't want to be an echo chamber, so conservative and independents and Democrats alike, please join not just my group or not even my group, any group that preserves our democracy. As we're all nervous about what's going on, I think, in the federal government, at least most of us are. And so I ask you to join some group, because together, that's how we're going to defeat any kind of fascism that we might be facing. With that being said, let me see if I had some notes. you especially seek someone for, oh, we're looking for some help on Indivisible, Skokie, Morton Grove, and Lincolnwood. I don't have anybody who lives in Lincolnwood representing ourselves. We're looking for leadership. We're looking for help any way you can, technically, whatever. We're expanding. We're about 500 people now, and we do this together. We can't, there's only 4 of us admins right now here. And so I welcome help. People who are seeking to get the same objective done and work together as a team. Come on. So thank you so much, everyone, tonight. I'm so, it's so refreshing to see tonight, everybody getting along. There's no divisiveness. It's been a pleasure, and I hope that sets a precedent again for everyone when they come on again. I feel like we're being unbiased, and I would take constructive criticism, please, if you have it, and suggestions. So thank you so much. Have a good night.